Who is she?
Oh, darling, I was hoping I wouldn't have to answer that.
Come on.
Well, Dorothy is really my daughter. You see, it was spring in Venice, and I was so young I didn't know what I was doing. We're all like that on my father's side.
By the way, how is your father's side?
Oh, it's much better, thanks. And yours?
Say, how many drinks have you had?
This will make 6 martinis.
All right. Will you bring me 5 more martinis? Leo, line them right up here.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, listening people.
Hello.
Hello, Bartek. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing decently well, Ryan. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Are you thirsty, Bartek? Do you need a drink, darling, sweetheart? That was him drinking, everyone. That's what it sounds like.
To answer your question, no, I don't.
You're hydrated, you're full of spit, and you both happen to be Polish. Both of you.
Both of me. Yeah.
Both of
me
you.
and me and the drink.
The bar and the tech. So we are spin Polish likingly because we're always spitting, and we both happen to be Polish. Bartek, any fun Polish facts? Any updates? Anything of note for Poland? Your mum just went there, so did she bring anything back?
I don't know yet. I haven't seen her yet.
She didn't bring anything back. She didn't bring back a leader of Poland. Yeah, you're not gonna have him on the phone this time.
It's my stepmom that knows the leaders.
Yeah, but
of
now
Poland.
your mum's bringing him back in her pocket. Just a piece of him, just a thumb, just a thumb. Just you know, your mum.
I blew my Polish leader fact the other week when we were talking about Jesse Eisenberg.
You've had a few Polish leader encounters in your life, and I've had like 0.
Well, you've never left Australia, have you?
They could come here.
That's true.
Hey, ever thought about that, big man?
I think Duda did come over a couple of years ago. I think my stepbrother saw him.
Who came over? Sorry,
the president, Andrzej Duda. That's his name.
It's a funny name in English.
It's dude, but with an A instead of an E.
Yeah, it's a doodah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a doodah right there. His doodah's hanging out.
Andrzej Duda.
Yeah, Andrzej's got a doodah out.
Trump's probably said his name before.
If there's any film in the history of our podcast that could have used the word doodah a lot, it's the one we're covering today. That's right, everyone. Here on Pictures Powwow, we sit down and talk about movies that come recommended. I recommended this week's movie. Next week, it'll be you, the listening people, and then the week after that, Bartek.
Oh, you confused me so much there, because when you said you, the listening people, you pointed at me. I'm like, no.
You listen.
I did used to listen.
Wow. You're not a listener?
I've never listened to a Pictures Powwow episode.
So you don't know what I do to your voice? You don't know how I clean it up and improve it?
I've gone to some episodes that had funny moments to hear the funny moments, but I've never listened to a full episode.
Wow. You don't know the hard work I do then.
I also listened to the audio clips you put at the very beginning. It's which section of the film?
Yeah, you're curious of which sections I put in. I hope I do you proud. Sometimes I go esoteric. Sometimes I go for something that's related to the episode.
I had to check to see if for On the Silver Globe you used the correct clip that I requested, and you did.
And I always do. When you request, I deliver.
That's cool.
So, everyone, we are here today to talk about a movie that I recommended. It is from 1934.
Oh, so it's old.
It is. It's The Thin Man, which is a comedic detective crime film adaptation of a Dashiell Hammett novel, and he was one of the great crime novelists, hard-boiled, pulp fiction-y, wrote all of those books. The start of this movie even has the cover of said book with the credits over it, so that's a fun little detail there. But if people have not seen The Thin Man for yourself, recommend that you do. Truly delightful. This was the beginning of a comedy series. There's many Thin Man movies. Many of them.
It's 5 or 6, 5 sequels, 6 in total or something.
There's a lot of fun play on Thin Man. They eventually, from what I could tell, have a child, and the child grows up in these movies and is eventually played by Dean Stockwell, which is amazing and the perfect casting. And yes, Dean Stockwell, of Quantum Leap fame, Or, for people out there who love movies, he was in some David Lynch stuff. He was in Blue Velvet, of course, as the guy who sings the iconic sequence.
Oh, yes.
Yes, Dean Stockwell was a child actor, but he's not in this movie. The Thin Man is as we said, it's a crime story. It's a detective story. It's about... Well, it's hard to say it's about the husband and wife team who solve a crime, because really this film's more interested in doing the Pink Panther type approach, where we get a lot of front loading of everyone else, and then eventually the comedic crime solver stumbles their way into the narrative and eventually solves said thing. But this is a case where we get to meet this family who are very concerned, or not at all concerned, about the disappearance of the patriarch,
yeah.
Of the patriarch,
the Dada,
who's an inventor, and his secretary turns up dead. And who did it? Who's involved? It's a tapestry. It's a web. It's all complicated. Did he do it? Did this person do it? Hey, Cesar Romero's in this movie, and he has a mustache, as he always did. Yes, that's right. 1960s Batman's Joker was in this film. Yes, he was. Did you see that?
No.
Do you know who he was? He had a mustache, if that narrows it down for you. In this movie of people with mustaches.
Was he... I'm trying to remember if the character had a moustache or not. The guy that escaped down the fire exit?
I'm trying to remember which character that was specifically. I'm thinking more to give you more, and you could say if this was that character. He is the not husband. He is the guy who's in a relationship with the matriarch of said family. He's the one who doesn't have a job.
Chris.
Yeah, he's Chris Jorgensen.
That's not who I was thinking.
He's Chris Jorgensen, the one who's very like, oh, I could get a job if I want, but I don't want to. That's Cesar Romero. Okay. He's very tall and has a moustache. But everyone, watch The Thin Man for yourself. We're going to get into the details. This is, as stated, a mystery. There's things to be revealed, and we'll talk about it. So I recommended this because I have not seen it before. I'm very much aware of The Thin Man as a comedic series, because if you're into, older cinema and you're into the comedies, but also if you know your crime stuff, The Thin Man, stuff turns up. I really, really like Murder by Death, which is a comedy film from the 70s that makes fun of a lot of these old books, these crime books. Like, you have your versions of Miss Marple, who's Miss Marble, and she's crazy old lady, and you have their version of Sam Spade, which is Joe Diamond, and he's played by Peter Falk, and it's like, that's great. And you have the version of the Thin Man couple. You have them, and they were, in that movie, played brilliantly by David Niven.
Okay, Pink Panther, yep.
And I mentioned last week there was a actor that makes me think of this, is like David Niven is basically, doing this role with his mustache and his drunken, brilliant gentlemanliness.
I was almost wondering if it was the same actor, but no.
No, and Maggie Smith were the duo in Murder by Death.
There was some trivia point that was like, oh, these two actors played this kind of thing, and that made me realize, like, oh, okay, yes, so I was wrong, but people were thinking it.
But I've always been wanting to watch these movies because I love the premise of this fast-talking quipster couple who are drunk, for the most part, who just happen to solve crimes. And having now watched this for the first time, I was elated with that. And I liked how the tone of the movie revealed itself like the mystery it does itself, because it's fairly serious to begin with. I was actually worried that I hyped it up wrong. It's like, oh, this is the beginning of a comedy franchise, I said last time. Because you meet the family, you meet the victims, you meet this and that, and it's played straight for the most part. Like, maybe there's one or two eccentric people, but nothing to say, oh, it's a slap of the knee, rip-roaring, laugh, good time. And even when we meet our lovely drunkards, they're funny, but they feel very much to the side. and the comedy that they bring felt very light. But we get more and more and more, and by the end of the movie, when we get to the classic, like, I'm sitting you all down to show off my brilliance of who is the murderer and how I figured it out, it is done in a most... You just can't help but just stroke your chin and be like, this is brilliantly funny. There's the way that they get around that type of sequence, and all the way we got up to there is marvelous. I had a great time, big smile on my face.
Yeah, when you said that when we meet what ends up being the main character, the detective, Nick Charles, I think, he does feel off to the side. Yeah, the film up to that point did feel kind of ensemble, like we're meeting all these players. Like I walked into this film not really knowing the premise. I remember you saying that like it codified a lot of, I guess, archetypes or genre things. So I was on the lookout for what that would be, but I didn't know that we would be following him. But yeah, when you meet him, he is very much bringing a lot of the comedy that was lacking at that point. And I was thinking of, funnily enough, you mentioned Peter Falk before. It did kind of feel like Columbo, where it's front-loaded with like, well, here's the serious setup to what the investigation, what the mystery is going to be all about. And then once you meet the detective who's going to, you know, involve himself with this, that's where the comedy starts.
They're an eccentric personality. You have that with Poirot, you have that with Miss Marple, you have that with Fletcher from Murder, She Wrote, Columbo. Like, we see this formula a lot. And what makes it unique, what makes it stand out, what makes the Thin Man different is it's not just the sole detective. He also has his wife, who is just enthusiastic about him doing cases because he's just been loafing about being a rich boy off of her inheritance. But they love each other. Like, they have these snappy back and forths, but you never doubt that they love each other, and they just love enabling each other. This is a relationship about enabling one another, and you can't help but cheer when they do it. And whether it's down to their alcoholism or their eccentricities or the dog, they have a dog that just gives the best reaction shots ever. Like, so much of the movie is just reaction shots of this dog looking embarrassed and leaving the room at their debauchery or their silliness. And it is wonderful stuff. So I didn't know much about the plot either going in. I just knew, they're a husband and wife team who solves crimes, and it's going to be old-timey. It's 1930s Hollywood, so they're going to have that transatlantic accent going on, you know, where you can't tell if they're British or New York, you know, that type of thing. Yeah. And
high-class Americans.
Boy, do they do. They do. Oh, man. Every character in this movie has the best voice you've ever heard in your life.
You know, I'm trying to think back on what Nick Charles sounds like, and I'm just thinking British accent, even though I know for a fact he did not have a British accent.
Hence David Niven is perfect casting to play him in a parody
British,
version.
Right?
Yeah, in a parody version of comedic characters already. Amazing stuff. But what did you actually think of The Thin Man?
I liked it. Yeah, I didn't love it too much, but I really enjoyed just its tone going throughout. Like, once you meet our main characters and you see what they're all about and how wholeheartedly the film loves their little quirks. Like you brought up before, like their alcoholism. This is from a time where they didn't call it alcoholism. He just really likes a drink. And just like every single scene almost, there's maybe like one or two where he does not have a drink because there just isn't one present. Like I was thinking of like a hypothetical, you know, YouTube review of movies, you know, reviewing this film and then bringing up the alcoholism and then having just a montage of every single moment where, you know, he would reach for a drink or make reference to I'm going to have a drink, and thinking just that segment might be like 10 minutes long because it happens so much.
And this is a year after Prohibition. This film came out.
Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm. They probably were filming it when Prohibition was on. And that's like these characters, every character drinking is shown to be some sort of celebration of life. And, you know, I think the film is aware that they're, you know, like they're playing it up for comedic effect. Like there's no like worry that, oh no, this is a serious problem for them, because they're drunken boobs who stumble their way through a crime and brilliantly solve it, but the way that they solve it is through through some gin. Like it's just great.
Yeah, I mean, they're not quite like Clouseau's or anything like that. Like, he is genuinely a talented detective. It's just that he didn't want to be involved and he just kept being involved. And so once he's forced to be involved, like, his brilliant instincts kick in and it's like, well, my hunch is that I should look into this. And then that leads him down the path of solving everything and being the only one who had the right ideas.
But and again, everyone, watch this. We're going to get into it.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump to the end.
It's on Daily Motion.
He gathers them all together, not knowing who the killer is, and just hoping that they would reveal themselves because they would be so shocked by his audacity. And it's like, the classic thing about like a Perot, say, is they do the parlor scene. It's like, I gathered you all here, and I'm going to give the big monologue that shows off
they've already got the full picture.
And he's doing that, but without like an end. Like he doesn't have the end bit sorted yet.
He's got everything but the culprit.
Yeah, and it's so hilarious to think too. Again, this is 1934. This is, you could argue, Dashiell Hammett's the writer of this, but like, when does film noir start? When does that start? We can have a whole conversation. And who started it? Is it Hollywood that started, or Europe, or whatever the case may be? We could go back and forth. But it is interesting to consider that the talkies are still fresh at this period of time, and these guys are fucking talking. They're going off. But these characters are like a lampoon of these detective stories, of these dime store novels, of your, Agatha Christie type stories, where it's like, the brilliant high class society person has through sheer observation and brilliant detective work figured it all out, and now I'm going to get you here in the parlor room and demonstrate my brilliance. And this is like a riff on all of that, where it's like, what happens if they were drunk and they haven't really figured out the end bit yet, but they kind of know how these tropes go, is whenever you get these parlor scenes, the killer will reveal themselves because of some emotional outburst. Like, that's how often they go. And it's like he is relying on that. Like, he is relying as a character.
Yeah,
that will happen.
Yeah, the reveal scene is actually part of his plan to get to the answer. And once he does find out who the killer is, he just punches them out. It's like, well, it's him. And then less than 2 minutes later, we're already done.
And then the film ends on a sex joke. So there you go.
No, the film ends on the camera zooming out from a train, Ryan.
Yeah. They're just kissing and cuddling, and the dog is covering his eyes.
The film ends on the end, Ryan.
The end, question mark. No, I'm kidding, of course.
The film ends on the dog, though. It's a good choice.
Gonna be hard not to just focus on the Charles, because they're brilliant characters. But I want to just say who my favorite character was. I don't know if there's anyone outside of these two for you, but I had a favorite character. Oh, go ahead. Because they shocked me that they became my favorite character outside of the Charles.
Oh, okay, shocked. So maybe.
Yeah, I was
going to say I might agree with you, but I don't know.
Please take a guess. I'm curious.
No, I don't know who your favorite is, but I was wondering if it would be the same as mine. Okay. But I'm guessing from what you're saying that it's probably not.
I was not a fan of this character or this performance to begin with, but through sheer persistence and perseverance, they won me over, which is the cop that they're buddied with, Guild. I loved Guild by the end of the movie. I was like, I love him. And I looked him up. He does appear in one of the sequels. I'm like, and I had a big, I actually sat back in my chair and had a warm feeling in my heart going, oh, he returns. I love that.
People like him.
Because he was the classic, square-jawed cop character guy. The performance was pretty wooden to begin with. He just barks his lines a lot. He doesn't have that certain something. But then as the movie kept going, and you get to see that he is a fan of these two, he wants them to be on the case, and then he starts to rely on them, and then anytime they have a spark in the case, he'll take credit for it, but then he's a fumbler as well. By the end, when he was just at the dinner table and he's just looking at this with bug eyes and these wild expressions of awe, he won me over. Like, I loved him as a character. I was like, oh man, I like this trio of crime solvers where you have like the legitimate cop, the one who's actually like here to do the job, but he's a bit of a clueless guy. Like, the dynamic is perfectly captured when they go to interrogate a guy. And that person's like, let me just get something from the spare in my bedroom, and then closes the door, and then you have Nick Charles already on the phone to call up the boys to go get him. That there is like a perfect encapsulation of like this great duo dynamic, and then you have the wife later on the phone being like, I've solved some stuff, and Nick has answered the phone. Like, all of that is brilliant. So by the end, the cop guild, he was my favorite outside of our two lead detectives. He was wonderful. I had a big smile. I keep saying big grin because this is a film that just makes you feel happy.
No, he was very complimentary to the main characters. Like, they made him work. I remember there was the scene where I forget the exact things that they talked about, but they were walking along the street. He was chatting about like his investigation, and he was like confident, like, and I'm very sure about this. And then Jack Charles has like one thing to say in response that like he didn't know about, and all of a sudden like his confidence breaks and he looks a little bit despondent.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's fun that you have this serious character and you can have him break down from just like a really minor thing.
So who are you drawn to outside of Nick and Nora, the two NCs?
Do you want to have a guess? I almost think
there's a lot of eccentric characters. Did you love the crazy wife, the ex-wife?
Oh, she was pretty good.
The one who could not keep, like the one who was a compulsive liar and just could not stop.
Yeah, compulsive liar and the accomplice to the villain. Yeah.
Yes. There's a few. Well, it wasn't Cesar Romero, was it? Oh, of course, you have to love the guy who was always like, "Are you gonna pin it on me?" The gangster guy who shot Nick Charles and gave him a flesh wound.
You're highlighting all of these very good characters, but you're not getting it. No.
How is that guy not your favorite? He's the one that you would want to play, I feel. Like that scene where Nick Charles gets shot. No, before he gets shot, and he's just like, look, don't point a gun in here. Look, my wife's not afraid at all. She's strong, but I'm a timid man. And then he says, okay, shoot. Oh, don't actually shoot me, you see. And then he does shoot him.
It was such a good scene, no, but unfortunately he wasn't the son. The son of the missing thin man.
The one who's like studying, and he has the glasses and the slick
glasses, a suit, always has this huge book with him.
I didn't even think about him as your favorite. It's so silly. There's so many great characters in this movie.
And all of your guesses were really good guesses, but I'm like, damn, that's a good guess, but no, you're not right.
Okay, please go into more detail about him and some highlights for you, because this is a film, again, to mention, where it does a great job at going through the structure and the format and the details of a crime story, of a detective story, of these boilerplate, dime store novel things. But what you're really here for is not the mystery of like what happened to the said thin man, but what you're really here for is these eccentric characters who just come in and out of the movie to give some great gags.
Yeah. So one of the things that this film does is it has this main family that the case kind of revolves around. It's the family that the titular missing thin man has divorced from the wife, and they're all living together. He's not living with them. And they all have an interest in the case. There's your first guess for my favorite character, his ex-wife, who's the accomplice to who ends up being the villain. There's the daughter, who's kind of on the detective's side because she's the one that brings him, the news of the case. And then there's her brother, who is this very studious man. He's always dressed in a suit, these glasses, a very thick book. You mentioned before the transatlantic accent where you think they sound British. This is another character where I cannot remember him, in whatever accent he had because it just sounds so British. And he's always just talking about, the things that he's read in his books. And he has all of these like little lines that tell you about who he is. Like in his very first scene, he tells us, it's like, oh, you've always had an affinity towards our father, just like I have one towards my mother, but it's only very slight.
An Oedipus complex.
Yes, you always had an Oedipus complex. I have a mother fascination, but it's only slight. Lines like that just killed me. I kept thinking throughout the film, like, oh, this feels like the most anime character. He's got the glasses, the stiff upper lip. He feels like he'd be on the student council in some sort of anime.
Did you love the moment in which the police were so freaked out by him that they promised to bring the body up to him and he should stay here? Up here, we'll come back to you, and just the other cop looking like astonished at everything going on, just like, what
he's a character that, like, based on his look and his mannerisms, like, should be the intellectual, but he is just so dim. Mm-hmm. He kept reminding me of, and I love this season of this show, Prince Harry from Blackadder. Blackadder.
No, this film is what it has going for it in a lot of ways too is its pacing is very fast. It starts out on a slow boil, but then once it happens, it just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. And there's an affection for the story itself because the Charles, the two characters, they're not interested in the story, then they become deeply interested in the story. They want to know everything about this family. They want to know, but also they want to keep drinking and hanging out with all the criminals he's previously locked up in cases, which is like wonderful. What an awesome detail that is. Like, I want to attend that party. Everyone seems really happy to be there. The guy who's crying because he wants to talk to his mother. And she's all the way in Los Angeles.
The scene ends with the wife being like, I love you because you know so many wonderful people.
And how does he know them? Oh, through his crime solving. This this obviously launched off into a whole series, and you have the three of them in them all, which is the two lead actors and the dog. Mm-hmm. Same dog in pretty much all of them. I think it's like in most, all of them.
I think the only thing I read was like he eventually plays the son of this dog.
Yeah,
but it's still the same dog. Skippy, I think is the dog's name.
Yes.
If this was Unappreciated Masterpieces, we would be putting Skippy in the list of the casts.
And the chemistry between the two actors and this dog is so good. So from reading this, so I am a bit more familiar with the lead man himself, William Powell is the actor. He's a great actor. I've seen him in other things. I've seen him most notably in My Man Godfrey, which is I don't even know how to describe that film other than it is beautiful and eloquent and just heartfelt. Very different performance, but he plays upper crusty. I don't want to get too much into that because maybe one day I'll recommend it because I just seeing him in this again, I was like, oh man, it's My Man Godfrey. I really want to rewatch My Man Godfrey. But him and the actress that plays Nora Charles, Loy, her last name's like Loy, Myra Loy, they got on famously well. Like everything you read about this is all because those two actors had such a great chemistry working together that they never had any dramas. There was no tiffs. There was no conflict. They worked beautifully. They were just harmonious to the point in which when they would go out together, they would have to get separate hotels because people would try and book them in the same hotel room because they thought they were legitimately married because they just work. They snap into place. They follow each other so well. There's sequences in this where you can tell it's improvised. Or that they, as actors, are just coming up with fun things to do. Like, for this scene, let's just lock arms and skip and hop out of the scene. And you just can't help but be won over. You're like, this is awesome. This is great.
I didn't read much trivia, but one point that I did read was like the scene after the party where he's shooting the balloons off the Christmas tree. The trivia said that was just something that he was doing on set, and the director thought like, oh, we should make that into a scene.
There's also a lot of that playfulness. So one of the things the director did, W.S. Dyke, I do believe his name is, he wanted him to be comfortable with all of the stuff in the bar. Like, here's all of these glasses and bottles and shakers. I want you to just get comfortable in the set. So how about you walk around in the set? We'll keep setting up the lights and the sound and everything. You just get comfortable in the set, just play around, do whatever. And so he did, the actor William Powell did, and he was just making all of these, remarks as the character, like, these funny one-liner, witty things. And then he heard cut print. They were filming him because they were like, "That's great, got it." Because they wanted him just to be in this environment. Because as we know from having studied acting, it can be a bit daunting how you work with props or how you work with a set. Having done theater stuff, maybe it's a bit easier because you have a longer time to get used to that. But when you're on a film production, you're thrown in and you're like, I don't know this environment. How do I interact with this? Like, what happens if I break this? How do I, you have to get comfortable. And I really like that story about, like, the director's just like, just go in there, play around, do whatever. And then they filmed him because it's like he's natural in that environment, just not thinking about being the character or doing the scene or that. It's just really fun things like that. And I just love, we talked about Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, and how amazing it is to think that Robert Redford and Paul Newman had not worked together before. And we didn't even comment on, they had like a 13-year age difference. Paul Newman was 13 years older. Wouldn't think about it when you watch that movie. They feel of the same era and same age, same every, they work so well together. And I love watching movies where you see two actors who you feel like should have always worked together for the first time, and then it spawns into something else. Like with these two, where it's like you can't help but just be won over by just the kooky, offbeat chemistry that the characters and those actors have with one another. Like, when she enters the movie, we get like a POV kind of style of her walking the dog. It was her, wasn't it? It was her. She's walking the dog as she like trips over into the scene, and he's just like schmoozing it up. And then you introduce like, this is his wife, by the way.
Oh yes, that scene. Yes,
this is his wife, by the way. And you're like, oh great, this is his wife. Amazing.
They were having zingers like right from the start. Like the waiters were saying like, oh, you can't bring your dog in here. It's like, no, this is my dog. Oh, and this is my wife. Well, you could have started with that.
Very well trained. It's like, which one, the dog or the wife? Yes, indeed. Won't bite. Yes. Please, serve the nuts. So it's like, oh no, to the people here. A lot of playful things. So, what are some elements of the Thin Man that you want to talk about? We've been getting into some of these character stuff and some of the behind the scenes stuff and the tone. But what are some things that leapt out to you?
Well, just one thing. Just to put my mind at ease, because when it happened, I was a bit confused. When it's revealed who the killer was that character in most of the film?
Yes, we had seen him previously in other scenes.
Okay, because when they said the character's name, I was like, I don't remember.
Macaulay was actually the person that got him interested in the case to begin with, because he knew him previously. He knew of him. So the daughter wants Nick to look into the case, and then he's trying to like guess people, and he's like, Mac, there was a Mac, wasn't there? It's like, Macaulay, yes, of course,
yes, they
Macaulay.
did say his name.
And we had seen him at the start of the movie when, talking to the said Thin Man about like his businesses and his money and things like that. And we had seen him throughout the movie. There was obviously the big scene where he alludes to the idea that he has been personally called up by the Thin Man to go meet him at a place, and then the cops follow along, and it's actually, no, there was no one there, and he's like, no, he never showed up.
Okay,
so
yeah.
He was in the movie as like the mild-mannered business partner.
Okay. All right, that puts my mind at ease, though, because I didn't really remember him too much. I guess there's just so many characters in the film that stood out more.
He's the least eccentric, that's why you don't remember, and that's why he's the killer, because he's the least comedically fun. Like, he's not a funny character. He's the most, like, I'm in a drama. I'm in a genuine version of this movie. Everyone else is a cartoon character, especially by their dinner scene at the end where Nick's got them all together. All of them are, like, absurd. Like, one of them gets punched out earlier, and he's like, clean that away. Just drag them away.
So many of them are so indignant in that scene.
You get the gangster guy that I talked about. He's like, you're not going to pin it on me, she? How dare you? And it's like, sit down. Just, darling. I wish we lived in a time where we called everyone, no matter age or gender or relation, sweetheart, darling, lovely. Like, they all call whoever that. Like, everyone gets called darling, sweetheart, lovely. Everyone gets called that. Doesn't matter who it is.
Well, Ryan, be the change you want to see in the world.
Okay, darling. Now we're entering Blackadder
Now you're talking about Stephen Fry again.
Now, darling. Thank you, lovely. What did you actually think of the crime element, the mystery itself, and how it was played out during the movie?
I thought it was okay. I was more into the comedy of the film. I was kind of thinking, not to the same extent, but it was making me think a little bit of In the Heat of the Night, where the actual mystery, the actual case wasn't really like the point for me. But I did enjoy that it facilitated the fact that we got to see, so many different characters, so many different scenes. So yeah, I saw it more as just like a vehicle for the things that I'm really there for.
Exactly. I thought it was effective in terms of the balance that you need for a comedy film to still be having a plot. It never felt to me like, oh, sorry, we've got to stop having comedy to do the plot. That often happens in these things. Like, oh, sorry, guys, you thought you were having a good time, but actually we're going to have to do the plot, which is alleviated because that's how Nick feels. Like, Nick just wants to have a good time. He just wants to hang out. He just wants to schmooze and booze. And then everyone's like, come on, Nick, do the plot. And he's like, oh, all right, I'll do the plot if I must. And he's just going to... And then he gets more excited about doing the plot and just figuring out the crime. And then, like, when he lets other people take credit for things, he's like, whatever, I'll solve it in the end. So if they want this little victory for now, who cares?
I guess on that topic, though, like, the only scene where I was kind of disengaged was when he was investigating the Thin Man's, building with his dog in the dark, because that was just a plot scene. There wasn't really any hijinks happening.
No, because he was sober then. He was more sober.
It's dark. He, finds a skeleton.
But then he gets to meet an old friend.
Oh yeah.
It does have a good payoff.
The film goes back to its strong points very quickly.
And the film reminds you of a character that helped introduce the movie as well, like the guy who disturbed the Thin Man and made him drop his gadget. Was the guy that he greets at was the guy in the warehouse.
Oh, that was that character.
Yeah, because he was the one that he threatened to fire, and he's like, please, no, I need this job. He's like, oh, actually, you're fine.
He did fire him, but then he took it back.
And then he took it back. I think it's hilarious that the Thin Man himself is the murder victim, well, one of the murder victims in this. Spoiler, everyone. Thin Man wasn't the killer, but a victim. And they were using his absence as an act to kill.
He's not just one of the three victims, he was the first one.
But it takes to the third movie, apparently reading, for them to now start referencing Nick as the Thin Man.
Yeah, they've got the branding.
They got the branding. They're all the Thin Man movies. But the Thin Man was just a reference to a character's appearance in this film, and that's it, because it was just one book called The Thin Man.
They even went as far as to have him have a rival who was called The Fat Man.
Amazing. I just want to also point out that the film is shot beautifully. It is shot wonderfully. It is not slouching because it's a comedy. It has a lot of intense shots in there, lots of moody lighting, lots of great cuts, lots of great just shot compositions. If you didn't see the Charles characters, you looked at this and you just saw images from it, or you were seeing it play on the TV, you would believe this is a genuine article 1930s crime film. And it's just these performances are the things that push it over. I always find it, a tricky balancing act of how much does the filmmaking itself lean into the comedy. We always praise Lemonade Joe whenever we can on this podcast, because that film is surreal and absurd, but it knows what it is. It knows the Western genre, especially of the early era of cinema, where Lemonade Joe shows in its filmmaking the authentic side of the Western. It can strip away all of the silliness. And that works for that type of movie where it's like, see, we have all the silliness, but we can show you that we actually know how to make these movies. And Mel Brooks is great like that too. Like, that's why Young Frankenstein is probably his greatest film in terms of like the filmmaking, because it's undeniable like how good and genuine looking Young Frankenstein is as like the monster movie riff it is supposed to be. But then you get other movies where it's just like the filmmaking itself is either too flat, too distant from the material it's supposed to be riffing on, or it's just way too silly to like it's a comedy film, so we don't have to really try to be a Western, or we don't really have to try and be a noir. Like, it's just Will Ferrell is Sherlock Holmes, and you're like, okay, could you please make it look like a Sherlock Holmes movie so then the gags work better? And they're like, no, it's just about him saying funny lines. Like, I really like that this film takes a like straight-laced approach with everything else other than the characters and the dialogue. Like, yeah, with the shot of the dog reacting are probably the most zany the filmmaking itself does. Like, that's the film itself deciding the dog needs a reaction shot, but that's about it.
You could easily, it might not necessarily be amazing, but you could easily remake this film without the comedy and it would be, a competent murder mystery story.
Yes, it would. And it's it's about the construction of it. We keep talking about like, how this is a vehicle for the gags. This crime element is so, like, it works. It does its job. But in terms of like the construction of like the actual direction and the cinematography, they go above and beyond to play it as if it is just another crime movie that you're watching. And I like that a lot. There's, you look at the series of these movies, if you just skim through them, and you just see like what the future holds for them. And it's just fascinating stuff. And I am personally looking forward to watching more of the Thin Man movies. Like, this is a series of movies where it's like, do you want to watch two great actors and a dog have a wonderful time? Do you want to watch one where they're stuck on a boat? It's like, yeah, I do. I do want to watch one where they're stuck on a boat. Do you want to watch one where they're new parents and they're having to solve a crime too? Yeah. I do want to see that. I do really want to see that.
Yeah, I think I was reading that one of them set in like World War II time.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, because they go all the way to like the end of the 40s,
like 47 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They go. But we've talked about a lot about Nick. But what did you think of Nora? Because she's the other half.
No, she was a lot of fun. I did like how it all came back to her, like, wanting to be enamored with her husband. It's like, do it. It'll be exciting. But then she also has the other side where, like, when he does get hurt or he's in danger, she is genuinely, worried for him, like when he gets shot. And it gets very brushed off eventually, but in the moment, like, she's very stressed out about it. And yeah, she has just a lot of, witty comebacks as well. Like, even we already talked about one of them when the first scene where she was like, oh no, this is our dog. Oh, no, wait, that was Nick, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Keep going with your...
That was his, yes. No, but like I was saying, she also has like she has a different style to him, but she has the same, blasé, going with the flow kind of attitude about things. Like, when I think of the film, I do think of Nick as being the more, like, alcoholic, drinky one, but she does get into it as well.
Well, she wants her martinis.
Yeah, and I was reading...
Give me 5 more, and line them up so I can catch up.
Yes, like, she wanted to catch up. And I was reading that apparently, like, she was more of, like, a femme fatale actress, and so this was, like, a very big departure for her, and that's always a lot of fun.
She was the favorite actress of the known criminal John Dillinger. He went to go see her movie, and then he stepped out of the cinema and was gunned down by the police. That's how important of an actress she was. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like, I read a bit about her because I have not seen her in much. She lived a fucking brilliantly fascinating... Like, her IMDb trivia just goes on and on and on. Like, one of them was blacklisted by the Nazis because she outwardly spoke against Hitler. So the Nazis were like, no movies of hers. was constantly at war with Ronald Reagan during time as an actor and as a politician. Got blacklisted in Hollywood for speaking out against the Un-American Act thing going on there, against the McCarthyism shit. And it's just like, okay, what a boss. She just kept like stacking up on like against the campaign for JFK. You're like, okay, nice.
She really was a fatal woman in real life.
Yeah, she was a force to be reckoned with.
What was her name, Myrna?
Yeah, Loy, which is a fun last name.
Myrna Loy?
Yeah, Myrna Loy, which is cool. And yeah, she has a different type of drunk energy. See, I think she's just as drunk, her character, but she's a high energy drunk and he's a low energy drunk, and they even each other out. Like, because he's very much like, oh, yeah, let me tell you about this thing. Like, he's happy. He's a happy drunk, but he's a lot more of a schmoozy. Yeah, let me tell you. And she's far more like, oh, what a wonderful time. She's a loud drunk.
Yeah, she cares about her style. She has that one line where he asks her, like, oh, aren't you hot wearing that? And she's like, yes, but it's made of this, so I need to wear it.
I liked, she's standing there wearing this elaborate outfit, and she's like, oh, darling, if we're going to chuck a dinner party, I'll need to wear a fancy dinner dress, and I don't have any of those, and I'm just standing there being like, what the fuck are you wearing now? Like,
well,
so
Ryan was
amazing.
standing watching this film.
I stood up, and I was like, what the fuck are you wearing now? Like, she has so many elaborate outfits, and she treats it like, I have nothing. And then he's like, oh, darling, you have everything. I inherited it. Oh, yes, you did. Lovely. And now I'm having let's go back to Los Angeles and just go back home. Oh, the city. Oh, I like the criminal guy that was at their party. The one with the missing teeth. And he's like, oh, I really want to meet your wife. And he's like, oh, I bet she would love to meet you too. Oh. And then she meets him. He's like, oh, what a wonderful party. Lovely to meet you. He's like, it is lovely to meet me. And it's like, so...
Again, that's how the scene ends. You know so many wonderful people.
Rambly couple. And they're just so messy. And they do fight with one another. They do bicker. But here's how you know their relationship. They both have a corresponding icky face that they give to each other, because he has like this big gasp, like faux gasp, like he never actually makes a noise, but his mouth goes agape, and he doesn't go, but he just makes no noise. And then she does the scrunched up nose and eyebrows, like she's just eaten a really sour candy. And they do that on the phone to each other, and they could sense the other one's doing it. I'm like, amazing.
Yeah, that was
amazing.
that.
That happened throughout the movie. It was just like amazing. Like constantly, they would give each other the icky face, and they would respond to one another with their corresponding icky face, which I liked. Little details like that makes them feel lived in. Like, these are cartoon characters, but there's also an authenticity from those actors' chemistry to those things, to the dog, like how they force her into a cab thinking that she's going to go on a crime, like help them solve a crime, and then she's just driven away, and she's like, oh, hello, I hate you.
Yeah, there's that, but I did keep thinking of like a Gomez and Morticia kind of thing with them, because they're not, like, the whole time, but they bicker a lot, but the love, you can feel it there. And you were saying before that, people thought the actors were married, right?
I am curious to see if in the future films they become much more of a crime-solving duo, or if it is still she's there spurring him on, and occasionally she'll pick up on little pieces.
Yeah.
I would love to see
how do things change as it goes on?
If she gets more of an active part in the crime-solving. I don't need it, but I would like it just as an excuse to see them in more scenes together, because it's like, they have their separate scenes as well, but you want them in scenes together all of the time. Like, just as you said, there's a whole bit where it's just him shooting balloons with a gun, and a little BB gun, and he's doing it like between his feet, and she's just sitting there looking at him like, okay. By the way, this is a Christmas movie. Should mention that. The Thin Man is a Christmas movie. This takes
partially.
place. Yeah. It's all about Christmas.
Yeah, but doesn't the case happen like 3 months later?
he was going to be back for Christmas and they're celebrating Christmas. Like the whole movie, he's like sitting there being like, look at my Christmas tree and I'm shooting the balloons off of it.
Yeah, but they find out that he's been dead for 3 months.
Yeah, but he was going to be back for Christmas, which was 3 months later, right?
Yeah, I'm just saying it's not all set during Christmas.
Oh, no, but most of it's set during Christmas. Like
Yeah.
the opening 2 minutes isn't. You got me there. Like for the most part, it's set during Christmas though, or Christmas time. It's a Christmas movie because they keep saying "Merry Christmas" to one another.
The start of the film's like the week before or something.
The week before.
Because he's like, I'll be back before Christmas in like a week or something.
No,
because the wedding's like December 30th or whatever.
I thought this was taking place. Okay. I thought that was later in the year and this was during Christmas because while they're solving the crime, there's a bunch of Christmas stuff around.
To be honest, it's not that this is something that I picked up on naturally. It's when they revealed that he's been dead for 3 months. I'm like, oh, I guess it's March then?
Okay. I thought he was like, don't have a wedding in a week. And she's like, no, it'll be after Christmas. And he's like, oh, well, I'll be definitely back by Christmas.
Oh, is that what they said?
Yes.
Okay, maybe that's... Okay, maybe I just misremembered.
Because he disappears for long times on end to do his inventions.
Right, okay.
But The Thin Man, I would recommend it. I had a great time. I'm happy to watch more of these kind of fast-talking... comedies of yesteryear. There is something, because Rachel and I went to the movies yesterday to go see Casablanca. It was screening and we were in the mood. And there's something about the golden era of Hollywood where they just were always wanting to use these wonderful character actors, and every person in the movie is going to have like some certain sparkle to them, like there's some memorable quality to them. But not only just that, it's there's something about the rat-a-tat type lines that they used to have in the golden age of Hollywood movies. Like every line is like this rat-a-tat-a-tat-a-tat-a-tat, quips back and forth. Everyone's like a smart aleck. And why is that different to where we are now, where people loathe that and call it the Joss Whedon effect, where it's like, well, we used to have it and it's charming here. I don't know, but I was just thinking about when I was watching Casablanca, which is many years later during the Second World War, and you just have these same kind of like razzmatazz, fast lines back and forth. Every single person is memorable in it, just like they are in this movie, and just like they would be, a decade after this. Like we've done movies from the 50s and even some of the ones in the 60s where there's just like this certain type of vigor in the writing. When we did Down with Love, we talked about that too. Where it's like, this is calling back to a certain type of like aggressive quality in the writing and direction that's like every character must be in all caps, character.
I always imagined that there must have been a lot of enthusiasm back in these times where, new technology, like, oh, we can record things with a camera. So, maybe the passion there would lead to the effort. I know this kind of goes against, my favorite scene from Babylon, but I also imagine like when you could start talking in films, there were probably some directors that were like, oh my God, the possibilities. Like this is a, quippy dialogue based movie. And if you're the type of person that really likes those kind of films, yeah, I would recommend this one as well, because there's just so many great back and forths there. I forgot the last part of my point.
That's okay.
But that's basically it.
I will forgive you. You'll get a treat. They never gave their dog treats that much. It was just like, you're good. You're a good boy.
Well, he broke that balloon, so, maybe not so good.
They weren't a big fan.
Oh, I mean, this is just a thing because I'm used to it now, but this is a Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer film.
Oh, the different lion. The original lion.
With I had a good laugh at the fact that its roar was much weaker than the roar that I'm used to.
And it was a much smaller looking lion too. Like the mane wasn't, it was different, but
less confident.
I've seen that one so many times, so I was like, hey, it's my old friend.
Oh, maybe I've seen it once or twice.
Yeah, there's a lot to chew on here. Recommend, you would say? You would recommend Thin Men?
Yes, if you like dialogue-based films, if you're the type who needs a bit more of a fast pace, maybe it won't work as well for you. But for us, this is a good one.
This is a good one. And so we are going to now get the listening people's suggestion. It is their time, and we're shifting gears. We're going to a true story film made by a beloved Australian director, and this is one of those ones that's like, hey, by the way, this guy makes other movies than the ones you know, which is we're going to do Lorenzo's Oil, which is directed by George Miller.
Oh, this is John's recommendation, right?
Good friend John from Dirty Harry Minute recommended Lorenzo's Oil, which I've only seen once before, but let's just say it will be a very interesting watch to see it again. And as said, George Miller is a director that you always think, oh yeah, the Mad Max movies, he does action and he does things. Then every now and then,
Happy Feet.
He'll do something like Happy Feet or Babe, Pig in the City. I know he didn't do the first Babe, but then he was like also did like this drama about this really sad real life stories. So it'll be interesting to watch since we've done several George Miller movies now. We've done Witches of Eastwick, we've done a bunch of Mad Maxes. I mean, I know we only did we I know we've only done Babe, but you know, there was a lot of his fingerprints on that movie. And even the director was annoyed with how much George Miller's fingerprints were on that movie.
What was his actual role in that?
Writer,
right.
Producer. But we shall be back next time to do Lorenzo's Oil, so everyone make sure to watch that film and don't get it confused like I do with did you ever see the movie Paul?
Yes, I have it on DVD actually.
Do you remember the I guess lead antagonist or like the secret agent played by Jason Bateman that was chasing them throughout the whole movie? Like his character is a pun. His name was Lorenzo Zoil.
Okay.
And that was like a play on Lorenzo's Oil. And it was one of the dings that critics had against Paul when it came out because people like, who the fuck? Because look, I like Paul as a movie fine. It's okay. Like I have it on DVD. It's a good movie. But it was a weird criticism ding where they're like, okay, who the fuck is this movie for? Because this is like a dick and farts joke road trip sci-fi dork movie. But then it's like, here's a character whose name is a play on Lorenzo's Oil. Like, who the fuck is this aimed at? And
it's like if Bill and Ted had a character called the Nightingale.
It's an interesting thing where it's like, it's fair criticism, I guess. Like, I didn't think of that, but it is one of those things like, who is this aimed towards? It's like if you watch, if you watched
Alvin and the Chipmunks and they reference pink flamingos.
I did ask John Waters about that. So he didn't know that they were going to do that.
Oh, he had a comeback for you though.
Why was I watching movies like that?
Yeah, what are you doing watching
movies like that? Yes, just for clarification, I saw John Waters live talking just about his career and things. And I got to ask a question, and I asked him what was the deal with him in children's media, specifically Alvin and the Chipmunks. He was going to talk about The Simpsons first, and I'd him like, oh, yeah, you're in The Simpsons. But I want to know more about, like, that makes sense that he was in The Simpsons. Like, it's The Simpsons. Like, at that time, one of the greatest written shows of all time. Like, it makes sense that he was in The Simpsons.
It was a good episode, yeah.
And it was a great episode. John Waters has one of my favorite line deliveries in all of The Simpsons.
Homer's Phobia was the name.
Homer's Phobia, where he says in the gayest way possible, zap, with his laser gun. He has, honestly, unironically, John Waters has that's one of my favorite line deliveries in all of The Simpsons. Just him going zap. It's just so fruity. But I asked him about the Chipmunks and how there's a reference in the Alvin the Chipmunks movie that he's physically there. But they make a reference that Alvin is aware of has watched Pink Flamingos, which is insane. That's absolutely insane. To think that Alvin, who is a child, has watched the movie where Divine eats literal dog shit and that there's a whistling asshole. And I asked him about that, and he said that he did it because he's a big fan of Alvin and the Chipmunks, and if you know anything about him, that makes a lot of sense. 2, he thinks Alvin's hot, which is awesome. It's just great. He's like, I used to draw Alvin with little erections. And I'm like, great. And the 3rd was he did not know that they were going to put that Pink Flamingos joke in because obviously he's just sitting there on set. They put that in post because the actor who played Alvin is a fan of John Waters and thought it'd be funny. And it is funny. And here we are talking about it. And then when I got the John Waters to sign my stuff, he asked me like, what am I doing watching those type of movies? Which, in all fairness, I've never watched the Alfred and the Chipmunks movie. It's just a thing I know. And I had to ask, if you... Look, there was a guy... I know we're riffing, but this is the end of the podcast. There was a guy two questions before me who asked John Waters the bullshit question of like, what do you think about how these days you can't make jokes? You know, he's trying to get John Waters to engage with like the very reactionary thing of like, John Waters stuff wouldn't be allowed to be made today, as if it was back then.
Some sort of like PC thing.
Yeah, as if it was back then. Like he was,
Good point. That's a good point.
It's John Waters, you know. And John Waters obviously rebuffed this, and then 2 questions later, is like, "Why were you in the Chipmunks movie?" It's just so silly.
You were the bad guy.
So next week we won't be talking about John Waters' filmography.
We might.
How many of his have you seen? Have you seen very many?
I think I've only seen the one you showed me, the mum.
Serial Mum.
Serial Mum.
You never seen Hairspray? Very interesting.
I've seen the remake. I haven't seen the original.
I'm also surprised you haven't seen Pink Flamingos. You would love it.
I've seen a review of it. It looks very funny.
I like Polyester. That's one of my favorites of his, but that's maybe that will come up one day. But and Crybaby's pretty great too, Johnny Depp.
One little trivia point about the film that we just did an episode on, The Thin Man. I read that in the book, there's a scene with my favorite character, the son, where he talks about like a case of cannibalism, and the person that he's talking about was Alfred Packer.
It all comes back to the first episode of Pictures Powwow.
Yeah, that's us. That was for us back then in the 30s or 20s, whenever the book was written. 10s? I don't know. 1700s?
I was going to ask, were the original books comedies or not? I don't know. I don't think of Dashiell Hammett as a comedy guy.
I don't know the guy.
Oh, another reference for us. I think it was the ex-wife. She said about like how she didn't want to lose contact with the husband, her ex-husband. I think it was her. Someone said very loudly and very proudly, I don't want to hi-hat him. And it made me think of Miller's Crossing, because that was the whole thing of John Polito's character of like, are you giving me the hi-hat? You giving me the hi-hat? And a criticism that Miller's Crossing got for using that was people genuinely didn't believe that was ever a phrase, and asked if the Coen brothers made up the phrase hi-hat. And they're like, no, that was a phrase always used in 1930s all of the time. And then I watched The Thin Man, and the character just happened to say, I don't want to hi-hat them. And I just smiled and said, you really don't want to hi-hat them.
It would have been great if they retorted like, that's not a saying.